like to say a very lovely good morning to the delectable Julia Bradbury. Thank you for joining us. It was my Georgie Lodger's sausage fingers that was delaying you entering the breakfast club today.
You need to chop those sausage fingers off and put them in a pie.
Vegetarian here, Jules.
Oh, okay, all right.
Although,
okay, I'm sure there'll be some fungal growth under the toenails, which counts as vegetarian. Oh, yeah, that's a horrible thought for breakfast, isn't it? Yucky.
It's just generally a horrible thought. Right, how are you? Where are you? How is your lockdown going? You seem to be making the best of it.
Yeah, so I am okay. I mean, look, I think there are people, everybody says, don't they say, oh, we're all in this together and it's the same for everyone. Well, clearly that's not the case, because there are some of us who are lucky, who have access to a garden, who are locked down with friends and family that aren't immediately under threat. So, you know, we haven't got that danger for our health. My parents are vulnerable. They're 80 and they had to leave. They come and see their grandchildren and they're with us a lot. They had to leave 6 weeks ago and they've been locked down. So we're obviously really missing them and fearful for them, because taking care of shopping and all of that kind of stuff. But for us, we're very, very lucky as a family unit. We're at home. We've got a garden. The kids don't really know. So my 3 kids are quite young, 5-year-old twin girls and a little boy who's 8. And we've talked about the coronavirus. They know it's out there and they talked about it at school and stuff. But really, we've made lockdown as fun as possible and it hasn't got to them, which is great. That's what you want to do as a parent. You want to sort of protect them. We've kept a routine going. They're doing schooling in the morning and they're out in the garden all afternoon. So we're doing well. And I really feel for people who are in circumstances where they don't have access to outdoors. And, you know, I've got friends who are in little flats and there are lots of people. You've got one person in one bedroom, one person sleeping on a sofa in one room and another. And, you know, that kind of proximity is very, very difficult to cope with for this level of time. So we are lucky.
Yeah. So is that one of the reasons why you started to do these chats, that you did one last night, kind of giving people tips on how to get through this and mental health throughout this lockdown?
Yeah, I sometimes I guest on talk radio, and I came across several years ago a walking therapist called Jonathan Hoban. And we obviously cross paths because I do lots of walking and love it. And that's, you know, a large part of what I do on the telly. And he does walking therapy sessions whereby he doesn't do traditional counselling in a room much anymore. He takes his clients, obviously not now, but when he can, he takes his clients out to parks, and that's how they conduct their therapy sessions, because he believes, as do I, that nature is very healing, that you can be more open in that environment. That when he's doing his sessions, he's side by side, so it can make it easier for people. You know, I can't imagine that it's quite difficult sitting in a room with somebody at the best of times. If you're doing a job interview or having a meeting, this face-to-face can be quite a hard thing.
It's awkward as well, isn't it? That whole environment makes you feel self-conscious because you've got that silence and you're sitting there, and then you have to. It's that whole what happened in your childhood feeling, isn't it? Of I don't really want to open up and talk. So the outdoors just let you kind of be free, really.
Yeah, it is, and that's and he says this great thing that, you know, everybody connects to nature. We are it. You know, it's the constant in all of our lives. The trees, the birds, all of that stuff. So we obviously connected because of that. And he's a great psychotherapist. He's been through the whole situation. He worked for the NHS. He suffered from burnout. He had his issues with alcohol. He had a difficult teenage childhood as well. So like many great therapists, he's been through quite a lot in order to be able to advise other people. So we decided, because we struck up this friendship, we thought it would be really useful for people during this time. Just the same way you're doing this, it's a lovely window into a new world, and it's really helpful for people to hear you chat and you're having a laugh, and you know, it's a nice thing to do. So we wanted, what can we do to help? So we sit down once a week and we have a natter about issues that I know people want us to talk about out there, because they feed us messages on social media. And we have a mental health talks called the lockdown session. And this week, yesterday, we recorded our session and we covered teenage anxiety, how you can communicate with your teenagers about the coronavirus and how to communicate when you're living on top of one another. We talked about positive affirmations and how they can be an important tool. And we also talked about an interesting thing. I don't know if you've come across this, but some of my friends have asked for help and extended a request, for a chat, and then you sort of give them a little bit of advice and say, well, this is what I do, and I've tried this, and try and stay positive. And they go, well, that doesn't help me because I'm not like that. I'm not in that situation. So actually you haven't helped me at all. You've made me feel worse. And it's a very tricky time for us as friends to be able to offer the right help to people. And we are going down the therapist route, and we're not all professional therapists. So it's been a really interesting thing for us to do, and people are responding very well to it. And it's a nice thing to do as well. I feel good that I'm putting something out there that's helping.
It is. It comes back to you, doesn't it? That is a nice thing to do. And in a sense, Julia, I wonder whether we aren't all professional therapists, as you said, but we are all therapists, actually, aren't we? Because it's the talking thing that helps. And if you can talk to your friends or anybody, but particularly if you can start by talking to any friends, it kind of gets the ball rolling, doesn't it? And it gets it out there. And everyone says time is a healer, but I always feel like time and talking is what heals. And
I think also right now what's very important, and what's come across very loud and clear with the sessions I've been doing with Jonathan, is that it's absolutely fine and it is normal for us all to feel anxious about this situation. None of us, the one thing that we do all share, whatever our personal circumstances at home, is nobody really knows how the coronavirus itself is going to play out. We don't know the impact that it's going to have on our everyday lives for the next 1 year or 2 years. That is the one thing that we all share. So it is absolutely fine for us to feel anxiety, to feel perhaps guilt sometimes if we feel that we're in a better off situation. It's okay to do that. And as you quite rightly said, talking is a great healer. Talking to yourself and talking to your friends and being allowed to express those fears is a really important part of us working through our emotions and dealing with it. And yes, it is. Talking is vital.
And we started this, as a sort of positive vibe. So I'm kind of aware. I want to get into the positive vibe. As much as I'm a person that says if you're having a crap day and you can have that crap day, don't mask it, just have it. And tomorrow you'll wake up and it'll be a different day and you can start all over again. You can't always pretend that everything's okay, can you? Because that doesn't work for some people either. And we all have those days. This show is quite positive. So from your chats with Jonathan, can you give any sort of general tips about, perking up, getting through this? I mean, it feels like there is light at the end of the tunnel now, and things will start to be lifted over the next few weeks in the UK. But can you give us sort of 3 lovely things that we can do?
So there are 3 lovely things that you can do and things that will make life easier for you. First of all, and I keep saying and banging on about this, is a routine. If you're not into that already, I mean, most people are, we're 6 weeks in, however many weeks in now. But a routine genuinely makes life easier for all of you in the household, even if you're on your own. Knowing that you've got allotted times to do things, whether it's, obviously having breakfast, working your exercise time, reading time, me time. Limit the screen time, I would say. When I say that, I mean hours and hours of watching box sets, playing gaming and stuff like that. That's what Jonathan would call retinal stimulation. And it really makes the brain, it sort of electrifies the brain in a way that isn't conducive to then relaxing, chilling and being calm and positive and happy. So try and limit that time. Difficult with teenagers, trying to get them off, that's how they communicate through their gaming and stuff now. But give them an allocated time, and again, slot that into the routine and say, when do you want to do it? When should we make that work for you? When you can catch up with your friends, do your gaming and do that, but give it a time limit, because that retinal stimulation isn't positive. So cut down on the screen time and make that work for you. Do something positive that you like doing for yourself. So I've always been into positive affirmations and gratitude and talking to yourself in a positive manner. That's what I've done for years. And interestingly, with my conversation with Jonathan yesterday, he then worked that into my bad mum dancing. So some of you, we'll talk about that. I know you want to talk about that, But I've been doing this bad mum dancing where I bounce on the bed to a loud song that I really like, and just, you know, Strictly is not calling for me, and I do not want that. But it's fun, and it's stupid, and it's freeing. And he linked that directly back. People love it. They've been saying, it's one of the highlights of my week for me, because I like seeing you basically make a tit of yourself. And it's a positive thing for me because it does make me feel good. I can be a bit stupid. I can break out of normal being a mum, being responsible, setting a routine, getting on with work. So do something a bit silly and a bit freeing, and it might revolve around music and dancing. It might be something artistic. Maybe you're not very good at art, but give it a go. Express yourself. Do something just to expand your boundaries a little bit, and don't feel guilty about it.
And then we're all kids, aren't we, at heart? We know growing up, as we know, is a trap, but we have to be responsible sometimes as you get older for things, kids, money, that sort of stuff. But we're all 14, aren't we?
Yeah, and one of the best things I always say about becoming a mum, I became a mum sort of quite later in life, is you really key back into your childhood, because you're reading these little stories with them. You know, I bounce around on the bed with my little girls and my boys, and you could just be a child again. And that is, in its own self, you know, that is a positive thing for you to do. So retinal stimulation, cut it out, do something positive for you. And a really nice, easy trick. Write down things that you remember that made you happy moments, holidays, people that you love, a joke, a drunken moment, falling off a step, you know, something that happened with us when we were filming. Write them all down, put them in a jar, and that is called your happy jar. And whenever you're feeling a bit down and you're feeling a little bit low, you go to the happy jar and you randomly, like the licorice all sorts, you know, your sweet collection, pick out one of those and have a little read and have a chuckle to yourself and get taken back to that moment of happiness and that little bit of fun.
But I'm going to get a bell jar, because it'll have to be a huge jar for the Georgie Lodger. Yes. So he can write down all his random happy moments that he's had over the years.
Yes, massive random
moments. Loads of drunken falling over moments.
Yes.
That sounds good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, listen, I want to talk about you for a minute, and let me do it, because you are like me. You always ask other people questions and talking about other people. Greece, your Greek adventure that you had on ITV went down an absolute storm. Tell us about that. Tell us any funny little stories that happened and how it came about, because I believe that was a passion from you. That was you saying to ITV that you wanted to do that, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was an idea that I had. So I'm half Greek. My mum, although she was born in Wales, is Greek too. So my grandparent, a Welsh Greek, hilarious. Catherine Zeta-Jones is a Welsh Greek as well. So there are some of us around. So I wanted to do something about Greece, because all of us are more connected to Greek culture and Greek history than perhaps we all know. There are a lot of expressions and phrases. I think there are tens of thousands of words in the English language that relate directly back to Greece and to Greek. And you'll see it's things like, we say this all the time. Oh, Suzi Perry, she's got the Midas touch, hasn't she? And, oh, remember those halcyon days. All of those little phrases stem from Greek mythology and stuff. So as I said, without even knowing it, it's embedded in us and the Greekophiles. So I wanted to do something that explored that bit of Greece and also did something quite personal and took my mum with me. So my mum and Moo is 82. She had cancer 10 years ago, and I was pregnant. I got pregnant with my little boy, with Zeph, and the prognosis for her wasn't good. And I remember to this day the conversation that I had with my mum when I was heavily pregnant and she was not very well. I said, Mum, you have to get through this. You know, you've got to meet your grandchild. She's got one place. You know, you've got to meet this one. You've got to hang in there. And I didn't want to find out the sex of my children when I was pregnant. But Mum said to me at that stage, she said, can I find out if it's a boy or a girl? Because it will give me something to focus on. I went, yes, you can, but don't tell me. So she did. And that's the kind of relationship that we have. she lived, I had my little boy, it's lovely. So we have a very special bond, and we're Greek, so there's lots of hugging and lots of wearing vests that goes on. And basically, I took this idea to ITV and said, look, we can explore the Greek islands, we can explore Greek culture, we can pepper it with a bit of my mum and moo stuff, and a little bit of history, and some of the other things that I'm passionate about, environmental stuff, the natural world, that kind of thing. And ITV said, we love it, yes, let's do that, but we haven't got any money. So you're going to have to go and find the financing for it. So my agent and I, between us, put together the whole package. We found a sponsor. We found a production company who would also contribute. We came up with it. We literally put the whole thing together, and ITV said, thank you very much. And it was one of their most highly rated travel programs of all time that they've had on ITV. People loved it, and I think people liked it and warmed to it because it was very personal. Not because it's not me, it's the story was genuine. The Greek islands are drop dead gorgeous. I mean, you saw it, you know, I mean, every week it was like salivatingly delicious, every place that you go to. And all the islands are very, very different. They do all have their own little quirks and characteristics. So every week we could go somewhere and just embed ourselves in a very, very different world. And the Greeks are very hospitable, and they're warm, and it comes across. It really, it worked. So a real passion project. And yes, and thank you for all of your support as well. You were lovely when it was on air, and you were always sending me lovely messages and stuff. And it's nice. You know, you do a job that you love, I do a job that I love, and when it works and it zings, it's a nice moment.
It's very heartening to hear that story, that you were able, and they listened to you, and you were able to go and say, I've got this idea. I mean, I know you had to go away and do all the hard work, and I can imagine how much hard work that was, putting it all together. But how great that you did have that opening there with them, and they said, yeah, we'll take it, you know. And it must have been,
you know what,
fantastic.
It is hard, you know, that you know this business. I mean, I pitch ideas all the time. Yeah. And that, I think, goes back to our mental health and our resilience and what we were talking about earlier. There's a lot of failure in life. There's a lot of rejection in life. There are a lot of times when people say no. And there is that great Japanese expression, fall down 7 times, stand up 8. And that's what you have to do. You have to keep going. There will always be knocks. There will always be rejections. And you keep going. And I was lucky. That was one of 30 that they said yes to, you know?
Yeah, no, I completely understand. I mean, it is sort of a deeply personal profession that we're in, and the no's come fast and thick, but it's nice to know that you got a yes, because
yes, also possible.
Sometimes people they like your idea, and then nothing happens, and then they steal it, and then they give it to someone else, and that is just part and parcel, unfortunately, of the place that we're in, of the profession that we're in. But that has happened to me, and I'm hoping that soon one of the ideas will stick. Anyway, we're doing this now from home, and that has been successful, which has been really lovely. But I've got a question for you from what you've just been saying, which initially, when this question came in from Claire Parsons, it made me feel quite sad, but I completely understand where she's coming from. So she said, how do you stay relevant in your 40s as a female in the media? So you can understand why I felt sad about that, but I get why she's saying that. What are your thoughts on that one?
You know what, there's no question that it is hard as you get older to stay relevant. And I think you have to try. When I started out, I suppose my big sort of break was working for GMTV, GMB. I was
the entertainment thing.
Yeah, the entertainment. I mean, I was their LA correspondent. I was Ross King, lovely Ross King now. And I was in my early 20s, so it was a big, big job. And I'd been working on a cable station before for Janet Street Porter, which got lots of newspaper headlines, but nobody watched it, or live TV, remember that? So I had enough experience of making television, you know, as a year and a half or so, whatever, into the game. But I was very, very green behind the ears. But I remember even then thinking to myself, I can't do this job forever. That this whole entertainment thing, I felt, didn't have longevity, in as much as I didn't think I'd be able to carry on doing it into later years. So I always had in my mind a long game and what's really going to work longer term. And for me, I didn't think entertainment was it. So I suppose I've been a little bit fortunate. I was presenting Watchdog on BBC One with Nikki Campbell, which is obviously a high profile, very good show, getting millions of viewers, and consumer journalism, so a good thing to be in. And I went to have a coffee with the commissioner of BBC 4 because I liked some of the stuff that was going out on BBC 4. He didn't know who I was, typical BBC quirky little exec who doesn't watch anything apart from his own output, you know, on BBC 4. And I was like, I do Watchdog, you know, that consumer show on BBC. Oh, right, yeah. Anyway, we got talking about walking, and he asked me, do you like walking? Do you like the outside? Do you like the outdoors? And I said, yes. Dad's from the Peak District, grew up in Sheffield, been walking since I was a nipper, love it. And he had just commissioned a docudrama about this guy called Alfred Wainwright. And he wanted walks, the Alfred Wainwright walks. And for people who don't know, Alfred Wainwright is a famous, now dead, but a famous Fell District walker who wrote all these beautiful pictorial guides, very pretty and very descriptive and very poetic. And he's a legend in the Lake District and further and wider now. So they wanted to pepper this docudrama. They wanted to sandwich it with walks. And that was the conversation we had. And this guy said, oh, well, maybe you should go meet the production company because maybe you could. We were thinking about a bloke. Obviously, they were thinking about a bloke with a beard and an anorak because that's, at that stage, that was the only people that did outdoor programming. Maybe you should go and meet the production company. And I would say that in moments where your career has changed and what's moved it on, I would say that was a career defining moment and changing moment because I did end up doing the walks, the Wainwright walks on BBC 4. They sandwiched this docudrama. They became the most watched thing on BBC 4's channeling history. And to this day, those programmes are still repeated on Channel 4, on BBC 4 and across the BBC. And arguably those walks led to me then presenting Countryfile and doing the relaunched Countryfile on Sunday night with Matt Baker, which was one of the biggest things in factual television in the decade and got, you know, record ratings and still does. So a little bit of luck, a little bit of intuition, a little bit of looking forward as to what might work for you. Obviously, as a woman in your 40s, you've got to work out what do you stand for, what do you care about, what are you passionate about. And for me, I am passionate about the outdoors because I genuinely believe it's a leveler and it's a connector for everybody. And we all need nature. And now more than ever during COVID-19, are we seeing this? Look how valuable that outdoor time is for people, that they can go to their parks, that they can go to their woodlands, that they can, you know, have to get
people
a couple
really
of hours.
appreciate it more now, don't they, instead of taking it for granted as we always have done in the past.
Yeah, and people are talking about, they can hear the birds, they can, you know, more the pollution, you know, we hear these stories all around the world, the dolphins back into the canals of Venice, sharks congregating again in coves around the beaches of Thailand that's incredibly polluted and they haven't done for years. We see this rebirth of nature. Yesterday, I went for a social distancing walk with a friend. We were on opposite sides of the street. We called at another friend's house and 2 baby blue tits were dancing in front of us on the windowsill. And then a robin came along on a busy central London, what would normally be a busy central London street. Nature is what we all need. We all need fresh water. We all need clean, we all need soil, and we all need to be able to breathe clean air, which is all of those things nature gives us. And I think I'm hopeful that this is a reset time. I mean, we're talking about Magic Monday. Boris is going to be talking about the relaxation of the rules on Monday. He's also just had a big paper delivered to him by his climate change committee, trying to persuade him that this moment, this is the time to surge and push forward now with a green economy, to really focus on the environment above GDP and try and make the two of those things work. We have been obsessed for a long, long time with GDP growth and making our economy grow year on year on year, which is not sustainable. We can still have businesses that are viable. We can still have a vibrant economy, but we need to move away from the dirty oil, the coal powered stations, all that stuff that is now cleared the skies, and you can see the Taj Mahal for the first time from, you know, I mean, stuff that is meaningful to people. And I don't think they want to go back to dirty smog and dirt, and that's what we have to try and sort of push and and really appreciate right now.
And this is something that obviously we're aware that David Attenborough has. So David Attenborough has been talking about so passionately for decades, but no more. I mean, he's really been at the forefront particularly in the last few years with the programming that he's made. That has been really pushing the environment. And I know that you were meant to go and interview him, I think, before the virus kind of kicked in. And I'm presuming that you've interviewed him before, Julia. What is he like? And how much of an impact do you feel that he has?
So he's obviously everyone's hero everywhere and recognized around the world, which is very, very rare to have that kind of international recognition. He is passionate and caring. I'm lucky to have spent quite a bit of time with him. And I said to him, what's the one thing you would say to people about moving forward and taking care of the planet? And he said, don't waste anything. Don't waste that food. Don't waste that journey. Don't waste your time. Don't waste. And that is a big, big problem. One of our huge issues that we're facing in the world right now is everybody talks about the burgeoning population and how do we feed all of these mouths, and that's it's a reason for this continued cycle of searching for growth. But one of all the statistics in the environmental story, the big one that sticks out for me is we waste 1/3 of the food that we produce globally. That is a massive percentage of food that gets dumped onto landfill that then produces toxic gases that are more toxic than CO2, that then contributes even more to the global warming problem. And that, even if we could just address that, and that means eating more local food, cutting down on meat, scrapping factory farming, which all goes back to COVID as well, animal husbandry, taking better care of our animals. This isn't a vegan, vegetarian argument. If you are going to eat meat, where is that meat from? How have those animals been treated? Where have they been roaming? What have they been eating? All of those things have a tremendous impact on the globe. And at the moment, the food chain system is warped and is wrong. You know, we're cutting down forests to grow feed, to then feed to animals, to then feed to humans, it's crazy. And, you know, to be able for us to be eating food consistently that has been traveled all across the world, and then to then put it in our fridge and then maybe throw it away is crazy. And that is one of the first things that we could do with global warming, to change things and really have an impact. And people are always worried that it's going to have a terrible impact on their own personal lives. And actually being able to choose asparagus from England rather than somewhere else, is that a bad thing? Being able to eat food in season, is that a bad thing? Being able to enjoy, if it is meat that you want to do it, having it once or twice a week rather than every single day, and your McMuffin in the morning and your sandwich in the afternoon and your sausages in the evening. Do we all need to do that? Is it really going to impact our lives? What COVID has shown us is we can adapt and we can change, and that's what we've got to do moving forward. And so David has made a new film for the World Wildlife Fund, and that is very much what he pushes as well, that this is what we need to be aware of and how important wildlife and nature is to us. That deforestation of the Amazon does have an impact on you, because we all globally need those trees, we need those animals, we need those ecosystems to sustain the planet. And to keep the soils healthy, which does impact us, which is why COVID can perhaps teach us all that, because yes, it was somebody over there in China, we think, who ate something, and it was a zoonotic disease that has passed from animals to humans. But it could easily have been a factory animal farm, you know, an animal that's been kept cooped up in their thousands in a factory farm in America or anywhere else. Those are all places that the World Health Organization, Jane Goodall, David Attenborough, all of these very reliable, trustworthy sources are saying, we need to watch this because we'll have another COVID-19 if we don't.
Yeah, and we can make our individual choices, but ultimately it comes down to well, people power to a certain amount of degree, but the governments. I mean, that's where we're going back to Monday and the papers that Boris has got. Like you say, these moments could be pivotal moments, and fingers crossed that they will be. Yes, hang on. The Georgie Lodger wants to ask you a question, Julia.
Go on, Georgie Lodger.
Hello. Have you watched, the way you've just been talking there, have you watched on Vimeo the documentary called The Need to Grow?
The Need to Grow.
I haven't.
Subtitle it. Yeah,
thank you, subtitling it. I haven't watched The Need to Grow, but there are so many fantastic documentaries out there at the moment. There's a brilliant book that I would nudge people towards called The Drawdown, which is Hawken. His name is Hawken, the editor of that book. And The Drawdown basically plans, they've used scientific and mathematician modeling to look at 100 things and changes that can reverse and change global warming. And I'm sure that Georgie Lodger, what you're talking about is we need to get our soils healthy again. We need to move away from
chemicals.
It's glyphosate and these toxic petroleum-based fertilizers that do give an instant return. They do make crops grow quicker and faster. But what now has been learned, and there are papers coming out, and I'm reading a few of them now, they're damaging the soil long term, and they're also actually changing the plant structure. So an orange that you would have eaten in 1950 or in the 1950s has 8 times less nutritional value than it does today, because the actual structure of plants, because of growing, because of these chemicals, is changing. But the most important thing is back to the soil. The soil quality is depleting. We've got a huge problem in the UK with soil quality, and that obviously has a long-term impact on crops. So yes, using regenerative farming methods, using crop rotation, getting animals back out of massive, big penned in captive areas and getting them back out on the land. It's called no-till farming. You're basically not meant to touch the soil. You're meant to let the soil regenerate. And if you do touch the soil, it's meant to be animals that touch the soil, that they use their hooves, or chickens can be used as well, that they're gently sort of ploughing the soil through their own, as nature intended, rather than as we are. And that is what we should be going back to, how we can be heading there, and will help with feeding the population as well, because once the soil is more fertile, we're going to be growing more crops again.
Yeah.
But there isn't a problem. There isn't, as I said, but still there isn't. People, when people give that argument, how do we feed everybody? I always, and everybody should go back and say, well, there isn't a problem feeding everybody, is there? Because we're throwing away 1/3 of our food globally. So that's not the problem. The problem is the food chain and how we're doing it.
Yeah. And ultimately the quality of the food that we're putting in our bodies, resulting in the illnesses that we are seeing, the rise of illnesses, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah, massive spike in illnesses such as cancer, Parkinson's, or those kinds of disease. And that spike, interestingly, begins in the 1990s. It might be a coincidence, and I certainly aren't going to go into conspiracy theories here, but in the 1990s, there was an upped use in petrochemical-based fertilizers.
Yeah. This is a documentary right here, Bradbury.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm very aware that this is our light morning breakfast show. So I'm just going to rip it back to another thing from the Georgie Lodger. He's desperate to tell you about his one cover shoot that he's done, and he does think that you might think that he is your poster boy.
Oh,
I've had one cover photo, and that's all I need basically. My career was launched after that. I was the cover model for Camping and Walking magazine, September 1991. You may remember that one.
Well, what can I say? That's it, you pulled. You're a man after my own heart. Obviously I am people might not know this, but I'm president of the Camping and Caravanning Club.
He does know that. That's why he's so excited.
Which and I genuinely believe, being positive now, obviously travel is going to change immensely, but the UK is going to open up before the rest of the world opens up, certainly for us over here. I know you're over there. And camping and motorhomes, it's going to be a way where we can go and do our thing safely on our own with our families. So there will be a resurgence in camping, and I need to see that cover, please, Geordie.
I'll send you a signed copy.
Perfect, that's great. And maybe we can do maybe you and I can do a joint cover for the Camping and Caravanning magazine.
Definitely,
or something.
100%. Yes.
Imagine. Suzi, maybe we should all do it, and we can do like the Charlie's Angels around him. I mean, I've got no idea what he looks like. This might not work. But
he'll have to be in a mask, obviously, because he's anonymous. He doesn't actually exist. Okay. He's a figment of our imagination on the Breakfast Club. I've never seen him with so much energy. You have got more energy than anybody I know, apart from my mum, who's just is one big ball of energy. You're incredible. And now the Georgie Lodger is jumping up and down at the thought that he's going to be on a cover of Camping Caravanning magazine with Julia Bradbury and maybe me. Because you know he's obsessed. He's obsessed with mushrooms. He's obsessed with earth, the ground, the job that mushrooms have. Actually, you two. You know, I mean, if he ever becomes single, I don't know what his situation is, but he's single and it could happen. It could be love in the lockdown in the Breakfast Club. Could
have you, Georgie Lodger? Have you been drinking? Have you found mushroom teas yet?
No, I haven't.
You need to look up mushroom teas because it's a whole new thing. It's the new thing, good for your biome, your bacteria, your gut. The whole caboodle. So check out the mushroom tea explosion.
I will do, definitely, because I follow Paul Stamets and I watch documentaries like the Fantastic Fungi and stuff like that.
You're going to love it. It's now all about the microbiome. Yeah. That's what that's the whole world. They're calling it, the scientists are now calling it the second brain.
We talk about this a lot in this house. I mean, it is a huge topic of conversation, mushrooms. I know you're probably laughing now if you're having your breakfast at home, but we do, and you know, we do understand the importance of that. Yes. But he's obsessed. And then when this new film came out, what was it called again? Fantastic Fungi. He was so excited to count down to the film release and everything. And then on the day, he's like, "Come on, are we going to watch the premiere?" And I was sort of busy doing Breakfast Club stuff, and he had to watch it on his own. Yes. And he's never.
Oh, okay. We'll do it. We'll do a simultaneous watch. Let's watch it again, and I'll watch it with you.
I'll send you the links.
Perfect. Thank you.
Right. Right. I've made a graphic for you.
Oh.
There we go.
Is there no end to your skills?
I'm so basic. Yeah. The thing is, I'm just a girl from the 1970s, and that's kind of where I'm happy. And so
that is gorgeous. So the outdoorguide.co.uk, that is the website that I founded with my lovely sister Gina. And on there, we've got all of my TV walks that you can download for free. We've got lots of camping and caravanning news. We've got it's an outdoor inspiration website. We've also got wheelchair-friendly walks for people who have mobility issues, dog-friendly walks. There are places to stay, but when we can all do that. It's just basically a community of people that love the outdoors and with some tips and help and all that sort of stuff. And that's where the lockdown sessions, if you want some mental health advice, they all go onto that. So the second one will be uploaded on Thursday. The first one is up there, and we're going to keep them there for people so people can just drop in and dip in and use those whenever they want. And anything on a positive about the world and the environment, because we don't want it all to be bad news. We talk about what's wrong. All the stuff that I'm talking about is really doable. You know, that is the positive, is that there is a way out of all of this, and everything is possible and can be done. So we mustn't all get doomy and gloomy about that, and it's not all the bad news. And we have made incredible strides. I mean, we all of us know more about pollution and food, and we're more informed than we've ever been as a population, as a world population, and that can only be a good thing.
It can only be a good thing, because if we start making all the right choices, then that puts pressure on companies and so on and so forth. And that's what we've got. A couple of questions I want to throw at you, Miss B. This one made me laugh. Romanian Jake. He says, how do you feel about being Alan Partridge's dream woman?
Yeah, mixed feelings.
It's a bit like being the Georgie Lodger's dream woman, and you've now got both of them. You've got a choice, Julia.
Wow, and that kind of shows you. It goes back to the earlier question about being relevant in your 40s, doesn't it? There they are, my target audience: the Georgie Lodger and Alan Partridge.
They are one of the same person, but from different parts of the UK. Let me tell you.
My life. The funniest thing that I ever heard and ever saw with Alan Partridge in is he loves Claire Balding, he loves me, and he loves Kate Humble. And one of the funniest things that he said somebody sent me a link that he said about me. It was in his Atlantic Radio Sky series. And he was, he sits there just at the microphone and babbles on. He went, "Oh yes, I quite fancy a Bradbury pie. That would be my dream dish." And the stooge in the back goes, "Oh yes, well what would be in that? Oh, Julia Bradbury smothered in butter, banger in the oven, 180 degrees. Bob's your uncle." So yeah, I quite like that. And I have got his book Nomad because I mentioned in that. And yeah, I'm going to take at this age, any sort of adoration, I'll just take it.
I know the feeling. Yeah. I had my birthday last week, and I know yours is on the way as well. You won't feel any different, Julie. It's exactly the same as being 14. And I think that's the way to carry on.
Yes.
One more question. Oh, no, a few more. Mozzle Wolves, any more Greek adventures in the pipeline?
So everybody obviously loved the Greek adventures, and when the audience research figures went back to ITV, they were thrilled because of the warmth of the response. But the commissioners were concerned that there wasn't enough fuel for a second series. To which we, the production company, said, no, I think we're wrong. There are so many little hidden. There's lots of fertile ground, and we obviously pushed back strongly on that. So where we came to was that the next series, and we don't know again if this is going to happen, but the next series after Greece would be somewhere else. And we were talking about the Balearics, and because there's a really beautiful magic to the Balearic Islands as well, and there's a lot of unknown stuff. So we thought that we would do the Balearics, and then we would go back to Greece after that. Right now,
that's really good news, and I love the Balearics. That's going to be incredible. I can't wait to see that.
Hopefully that will come off.
Yeah,
now.
Fingers crossed for you. I wonder whether the Durrells that went out on a Sunday night that was just so effortlessly beautiful, and kind of gave you that feeling of living somewhere. And a lot of people say that about the breakfast. Oh, we feel like we're in your garden and the sun and the roses and all that sort of stuff. And although obviously it was, completely different to your adventure, I wonder if it gave people a little taste for what you did in some way, like a precursor.
Definitely. Things move in waves, don't they?
They
and
do,
there are things
especially in television, don't they?
Yeah, and once upon a time, sort of 15 years ago, the first it was MasterChef, and then cooking became the thing, and hadn't been since Delia for a long, long time. And it's cyclical. That's how it works in television. And there's no question that something as popular and successful as the Durrells gets embedded in people's psyche, and then when they see similar vistas and islands, and we filmed on the island of Corfu. We went to the little village where they do film, where they had filmed a lot of the Durrells, and yes, it really it does help, and it does sort of take people back, I think. But it's particularly weird how many people in Britain have been to Greece, love Greece. There's also Shirley Valentine, remember that old story, and that. There are so many. I mean, how many friends do we know that had affairs with Greek waiters? I mean, I've got a really good friend who, when she was 18, went off to Spetsis for a bit of traveling before she carried on with her university stuff, and met the Greek waiter, and came back home, and then a year later went, no, I'm going back, and is still there, happily married, 25 years, 2 children later, and by all intents and purposes, you look at her and she looks Greek. So this does happen, and there's something about Greece that people have a connection with. for sure.
Well, I have a connection with Spain. Mine was a Spanish pharmacist, but there you go. That's another story entirely.
Very handy. I mean, everybody needs a pharmacist.
Right?
Yeah.
Give us your favourite walk. If you could only walk one more walk for the rest of your life, where would it be?
Oh, well, I'm going to have to go for probably the Dovedale Walk in the Peak District, because that is my patch with my lovely daddy, with my dad, Michael. He took me walking first when I was 6 years old, and he grew up in and around Buxton and Derbyshire and all around that area. So he taught me to tickle trout. He took me walking, did my first long distance walk with him. And the Dovedale Walk is just beautiful. It's not too hard. It's very lovely. I could do it with my family, and will always, always remind me of lovely daddy, who's still here, by the way. He hasn't gone anywhere, but if it was one for the rest of my life, it would have to be something connected. Yeah, back to that.
Oh, yes, I think she did. Georgie Lodger just holding up a thing saying, did she climb a live volcano? You were in Iceland, right?
Yeah, that's right, Iceland. So my Icelandic adventure, we did the Landmannalauga Trail, which is this long distance walking trail, which is famous all around the world, and you bump into people from Italy and Australia and New Zealand, and it's, you know, it's one of those biggies that if you're a walker, you do it in your lifetime. So we did that. It's a 5-day hike. It's pretty hardcore, amazing scenery. Iceland is quite literally explosive. It's the most geologically active place on Earth, more than 200 volcanoes. And Eyjafjallajökull, the big E,
well done,
had exploded, and for the first time in aviation history, it stopped planes flying. Of course, something else has now done that. So the Big E is a famous volcano for that reason. And we wanted to get to the top of it, and we were told by the government that we might be able to do it at the end of the trail. They sort of dangled the carrot that it might be a possibility. And they didn't let us know until day 5. We finished, and then they said, yes, you're allowed, you've got permission, you could go. Nobody had been up, only scientists had been up at this stage. But we couldn't walk it, Georgie Lodger, because it was too dangerous. It was basically, the Eyjafjallajökull erupted, and it erupted over a glacier. So then for the next few months, the glacier just was melting underneath all the volcanic ash. So it was a quagmire of poisonous and toxic gases, and it was melting. It was impossible to walk on it. You know, it was treacherous, but they did let us helicopter up there. So we helicoptered to the top. I had a fantastic guide called Hannah who was with me, and we both jumped out of this helicopter and we felt like we were landing on the moon. It was remarkable. No footprints, this black dusty sand. You know, we jumped out, we walked to the edge, we looked out over this crevice, which you could hear still creaking and melting, and it was a real life wow moment. Yeah, it was incredible, incredible. Definitely one of the most exciting things I've ever done.
Yeah, a lucky life experience that was. It must have been
phenomenal.
Sure. Julia, I think I'd like to finish, if we can, with your famous mum dancing to cheer people up. Do you think you could give us a little whirl of what you do on a regular basis? Post it. Always makes me laugh and makes me want to jump up and down. So I think this is a fitting tribute.
Are you going to give me music, or have I got to do it cold?
Can you bang some music on? Oh, have you got any requests?
Oh, anything you like. Just give me something. It's got to be obviously up tempo.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of you choose. Come on, put me on. What would I do?
This isn't the time to lose the Wi-Fi, Georgie Lodge. Come on now.
Should we go? What about Whitney Houston?
No, Jimmy Nail. It's not up tempo. We're not having Jimmy Nail on the show.
Come on, mum dance to Jimmy Nail.
We can't do anything to Jimmy Nail. That's the problem.
Good grief.
Put some disco on or some.
Yeah, give me some disco or some Whitney or something like that.
You know what the problem is? He doesn't understand music. He just likes house music. So anything with words in, he doesn't. He's like, what is this? And it can be the biggest song. You know, Beatles song. Who is this? It's excruciating living with the Georgie Lodger, I can tell you, if you like music.
And I love a bit of house music, and I will be doing a bit of bad mum dancing to some house music. But you know, it's got to be something a bit more
got to be some classic 90s house if you're going to do house, or just
here. I've got. Let's see if I can do it here.
Hang on, here we go. Here we go. We've got a bit of Sister Sledge for you. Can you hear that?
Okay. Hold on. Hold on. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Okay.
Is this working? Because I'm a little delayed on this.
She's got the moves. Got the moves.
Well, it's not fair to that coming in, is
Are you
it?
going as well, are you?
Come on, Bruce.
Hang on.
I have to record it.
And I love that dress, Julia.
Thank you. This was from Primrose, London. They lent it to me for a photo shoot that never happened, and I've had it in lockdown.
Come on, Breakfast Club, on your feet.
Come on, everyone.
It's like being at a bad wedding, Georgie Lodge.
Reckon?
Yeah.
It's almost like your wedding with Julia. Look, this could be one of your dances.
This could be our first dance.
And this is how it will have to be, a social distance wedding.
Yeah.
Oh, guys, right. Julia B, you are. Oh, there we are. You are one of the most energetic people that I've ever had the fortune to meet. You're a beautiful soul who I don't know that well. Our paths have crossed over the years, but the reason why I wanted to get you on was all the things that you're doing. But also, I remember once I'm slightly out of breath. I was feeling a little sorry for myself because of various things. And you, hardly knowing me, invited me round to your house.
Oh,
and I thought, what a lovely girl to do that, because you thought I was in Chiswick, I think, at the time.
I did. I knew that you were a little under the weather, and I didn't know your circumstances and everything else. So I was just like, you know, come and have a cuppa, or come and be mad with the kids, or whatever it is. Just come and chill, come and sit. And of course, it's an open invitation next time you're here.
Thank you very much, and it stayed with me. And I do think it is those things that make us all human. And you're a wonderful human. You're very well informed. You're very interesting to listen to. You're very funny, and you're brilliant at yoga, and your flipping body's amazing. I'm working towards it. But it's been great chatting with you, Julia. Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming on the show. Good luck with everything. Good luck with the next TV show as well. Let's hope you get to the Valerics and get that one nailed. Can't wait for that. And thanks for everything you do. A big kiss. Have a good day.
Susie, thanks for doing your breakfast. You are bringing light and love to so many people. It's a brilliant thing you're doing. So big love to you and to the Georgie Lodger. You're a fun guy.
Thank you.
He really isn't. But I see what you did there. Thanks, Julia. Thank you so much.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Lots of love. Lockdown love.
Yeah, lots of love. Lots of lockdown love. Well, that was a different kind of interview again. A different kind of chat. Wasn't an interview really, but a lovely chat with Julia. She's amazing, isn't she? She's so well informed and interesting to talk to, I think. So we'll go from, this is the only show we can go from Steve Parrish one day to Julia Bradbury the next day. But lots of fun. Mum dancing. Get a bit of mum dancing, a bit of dad dancing. You do dad dancing in the kitchen sometimes when you make beans on toast. The 2 times you've made it in the 7 months that you've been here. Okay, so tomorrow, a different chat with a man with an extremely square jaw. Do you know who that is, Georgie Lodge?
Buzz Lightyear.
Yes, he is the Buzz Lightyear of Formula One. Tomorrow, David Coulthard is going to be on The Breakfast Show. So we get your questions in about Formula One, about anything to do with anything that you think David knows about. He's hilarious, David, actually. I hope we get hilarious, David. But thank you for saying yes, DC. So DC on tomorrow and Narina Palo on Saturday morning. And don't forget, Saturday will be an hour later at 10. So we can all have a lie-in. Thank you very much for today. My phone froze, so I couldn't see what you were asking the lovely Julia. I hope you enjoyed that, though, and I hope we've lightened your lockdown and brought some sunshine into your Thursday. Have a good one. See you in the morning. Lots of love from me and the Georgie Lodger.